how to bulk add of students to an MS Teams group and channel, which is not a straightforward approach. How you could do this by yourself. So what is the problem really? You might think that it's actually quite straightforward to add, if that's what you want to do, and there's a couple of advantages if you did want to add students to an MS Teams group. The advantages of that doing is that you could communicate with the students on an ongoing basis, synchronously and asynchronously. That's a big deal in our blended learning setup. It's also quite useful if you wanted to make sure that you have session-specific setups per topic. You can create a channel per topic for the students to keep materials in there. You could use the class notebook in a specific MS Teams group for a specific course or module. So it makes sense to set these up because it's quite helpful to manage the students this year. The problem is that it's not quite so straightforward with MS Teams to add students than to, let's say, adding students to an Outlook appointment, which is basically copy-paste the range of email addresses or use a CSV and then just pop them in there copy-paste wise. It's not possible here. And if I show you quite quickly, so I'm here in my MS Teams on my main screen, and you see that here is the Manage Teams view where you see all current team members. And currently we have 5 tutors attached to this MS Teams group, but so far no students. Now, last time I looked, in the list was about 280 students I wanted to add for this specific course, and that is not that useful. Yeah, so I can either do the long way around and add student by student by student, or give up my plans altogether of having the students in a specific space here in a specific MS Teams group, or I am applying a workaround. Bad news is the workaround is not that straightforward, but you can follow it closely. A couple of these steps that I'm going to show you only do once. And then you can bulk add students to these courses. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and this is where I want my students, and as you can see, I have currently 0 other members in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just minimize this. In fact, I can actually close this, because if I just close it by clicking the X, it will start keep running here in the background. So I can call it up whenever I want later. So I need to do a couple of preparations to make this work, and one of the things that you need to do is you need to generate a spreadsheet, a CSV file, comma separated value file, with just the student email addresses in there. So when you're on your Moodle page, in this case it's the one for Introduction to Management Accounting, we're just going to look for the users. Click here on the cog on top for the settings, and then you click on More. Now it's loading. I'm not going to go to my users. Yeah, so I'm here on the course administration page. I'm looking for the tab called Users, and then I'm clicking on that one. So next I'm going to click on Enrolled Users. These are all currently added users to my Moodle shell. And of course, the advantage here is that I can basically separate these out. So I'm currently seeing 286 participants in here. And now here it says with selected users. I have here my users selected, and I say I want a Microsoft Excel. Now you also see a CSV option here. The thing is that, of course, I said earlier, you will need to prepare a comma separated file. The problem is that if you are already telling Moodle here to generate a file like that for you, then it's a bit of a pain to get rid of some data in that file, because the only thing that you need for our purposes are the student email addresses. Now with a Microsoft Excel table, the only thing that you need to do is delete everything in the columns that you do not need. So we're just going to do that. I will say Microsoft Excel, and then just wait for this to download, and then we're going to manipulate that a little bit. We have now our Excel open, and you see that this is the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns here with first name, surname, email, ID, and user type. The only thing that we need is the email address, so I'm just gonna enable editing, and then I'm going to delete those columns that I will not need, which is first name, surname, not the email address. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this, and the ID number and the user type. So I will click here, make this broader. And then I change this heading here, that's important, very important, to email. Just email. Small caps, yeah? It's this case sensitive later. We use this in a command in Microsoft PowerShell. So, email, and you have all the email addresses of the students we just filtered in here. And now I'm gonna go ahead and save this as a CSV. So first we give this a name, and you can call this email. And then I'm picking a specific place to save this. And there's a reason behind that too, because in the commands that we need to run for our PowerShell, it will ask for the file path to this CSV file. So if we do that, if we are addressing this path, you better make sure that this path is short and rememberable for you, and not somewhere hidden in a folder way down below in your file structure. So where I'm gonna save this is actually on my USB, which in my case has the drive letter F, and just on the highest level here. So my path will then be f./emails6.csv. It's emails6, so that's the name of the file. I'm gonna save this. You can give it any other name. The name for the file is not that important. You can give it your course code or whatever it is. Inside the CSV, it's important that this says email in small letters. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this because I won't need this open. Yes, I'm going to call it PowerShell. How do I do that? I type in the search bar, just type in PowerShell, which should find the Windows PowerShell, and just wait until this is fully populated, because you need to run this as an administrator. That's important, yeah, and then you will be prompted to confirm that. So don't just open it, run it as administrator. That is very important that you click this. There it is. Those of you who have some memory of MS-DOS, to those that will look very familiar, it is basically your MS-DOS successor. There's still a DOS prompt in Windows 10. This PowerShell has a few more functions. So before we proceed, you need to make sure that this says Administrator Windows PowerShell. And so what are we going to do in PowerShell? We are trying to open a different way into the MS Teams application. So that means what we are going to do is we are going to first install the module for Microsoft Teams for PowerShell. So PowerShell can then accept commands that are directed at MS Teams. We will then, once this is installed, trying to find a so-called group ID of the channel that we're trying to address, that we're trying to add students to, and then we are running a command where the information within the CSV we just created will be populated into the corresponding Teams group. Okay, so this is what we're just gonna do right now. So to do this, first you need to install the module, and you only need to do this once. Okay, overall, once you've successfully done this, you no longer have to do this again. So you type install Then you type dash module blank space. You type another dash, minus sign basically, name, blank space, and Microsoft, and in one word, Teams. Just like this, how you see it on screen. Install dash module, blank space, minus name, blank space, and then Microsoft Teams. Ideally as it's just written out here. And then you click the enter key and then PowerShell will... Okay, so we're back here and you see that this is the first prompt. This says untrusted repository. You're installing the modules for an untrusted repository. If you trust this repository, change its installation policy value by running the set PSR repository commandlet. Are you sure you want to install the modules from PS Gallery? You save there, that's fine. So we need to basically say yes to all, which is the letter A. So you just type in A, just like this. And then you hit the enter key again. And then it should start installing. So you can see that we are almost done. So this is here what you see on top. This comes up and starts downloading, and it keeps on prompting you for it. So just wanted to make sure that you see this here on top, should you decide you want to bulk add students. This turquoise colored field has disappeared, and we're back to the prompt. So this is what it should look like. Now we give it the next command. Now we're actually going to connect to Microsoft Teams, and this will prompt a pop-up window that will go Microsoft logon, that where you need to log in and log on with your university user so it can make the connection to the software. Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I type in connect, dash or minus, however you want to call this symbol, and then Microsoft Teams, and please check the spelling. More often than not, I typed Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Team. It needs to be Microsoft Teams, and when I hit enter, it should come up with a prompt, a login prompt. So this is your typical prompt here, and I'm using my university user, and that takes me to the sign-in page. And now I type in my password, which obviously I'm not gonna tell you. So and now it can establish a connection, and we'll see a little information there. So it should look similar to that in your cases with your accounts, the environment, the tenant ID, and the domain. It shows that and should go back to the prompt. That means now we have established a connection. Now in the next step, and that will take a little bit, we now need to get for our prompt to address the correct MS Teams group, in my case the ACO 1084 online module group that I created. So I want to populate that, and for that I need an internal ID. That ID is not readily visible, but we can use this here in order to find this ID. We can now call up the IDs of all those groups that we are owners of. Yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. The command is get minus team, and please be careful, it needs to be team, not teams. Just get minus team, as you can see it on the screen right there. Yeah, so not teams, get minus team, And when you hit the enter key, at first you will be thinking nothing's happening. It might take a while until you have something visible here, which will be a list with the IDs and the names of the team groups that you're actually the owner of. So I will hit the enter key. So you can see on the main screen that I have now, after the get team command, ran a range of group IDs. And I require these group IDs now for a command that I'm going to run within the PowerShell that is supposed to grab the email addresses that we've created, or I've created in the CSV earlier. So from that list, this is the list, your list will look differently. That list are all the groups on teams that you are an owner of. They might be self-created, or you have been made an owner by the original creator of that group. And now here on the left hand side, you can see that there is something called the group ID. That group ID is what we require. And here is also the syntax for that. The argument group ID spelled like this. So we're going to create a, let me go about here, these are the IDs. So we need to create a command, and for that command to work, we need the group ID, and the group that I am trying to populate is this group here, the Accountancy for ITMA Online for the students. It takes about a good hour on an average computer for PowerShell to get the team group IDs. So just let this run in the background. There's no need to interrupt it or close it or panic. Just wait. Wait until this list is being generated. It takes about an hour. Yeah? And then when it's ready to be input again, we'll have this line here. And for that now we need the command to run with the group ID extracted. So I have the group ID here, and I made a mistake earlier. I forgot one letter, and the whole range started to produce errors for every data set that's in there. In about 280 data sets, there's an error generated, and it takes a long time for this to finish, and I had no other choice than to basically close PowerShell and try again. Now we're here, and hopefully now this will not happen. So how does the syntax look like? The syntax looks like as follows, and I leave this. So if you want to just copy that, then don't copy it exactly like this. There's two spots where you need to make a difference. So you want to pause the video after my explanation and type before that import minus CSV with a capital C and small sv, blank space, then minus or dash path. There is no blank space between the dash and the P. Yeah? Path, and then again blank space, and then comes the path of the file. Do you remember when I said earlier that place this file, the CSV with the student email addresses, somewhere very high up in a folder hierarchy, because then it's easy to remember the path to it. Remember that I put F, which is my USB thumb drive, colon / and then emails6.csv. That was my file name. So if your file name was different, like just emails.csv or email CSV or your course code in CSV, whatever it was, it needs to exactly match here where it is, so PowerShell can find it. And then what does PowerShell do with it? And that's, again, it's important, very easy to overlook. After CSV, there's a blank space, and then there's this vertical line symbol. You can find that on your keyboards. It's not very often used. On your keyboard in the bottom left, on the right hand side of the shift key, there it is. You need to press the shift key, hold it down, and then hit that key so it's selected. It's not the slash. Yeah, it's where you find the slash. It's just the uppercase variety on the key. And then you need another blank space, and then you need to type for each in one word. No blank space, so those curly brackets, and then add minus team user. So that's the command. So basically this is where they will go into a CSV and extract every one of these to add as a team user, and we use the email addresses for that because they are unique. After team user, and please make sure to spell exactly like this with caps where required, blank space minus, then the group ID. Remember, this is this part here, the group ID is basically this. Yeah, see that here, we have the group ID here. So we need that extracted, so please be very, very careful. Every little letter here counts, otherwise it cannot be found. So I did that earlier. As I said, I made one mistake, I forgot one letter, produced just errors. If that happens, just don't panic. Stop the process and start again from the get team part. Unless you have actually done what I've done earlier, because I have basically copied it into a snipping tool. Yeah? So I don't have to do that command again if I save that file. Alright, so once you've triple checked, quadruple checked, if this is the ID that you find here in PowerShell, then another blank space, minus, and then small letters user, blank space, the $, an underscore, a full stop, and then email. And email, that is the column title that we put early in the CSV, where I was so insistent that you type email. If you wrote emails, and before you run the command, it's worth double checking. If you wrote emails as the header, then this here also needs to say emails, and then a curly bracket to close it. And now we'll see if this works. I just copy this and then paste it into PowerShell. Just double check before I run it. So now let's hope. Keep our fingers crossed. And let's see what happens. How do I know that anything happens? So I just switch over to my MS Teams to remember there was nothing in there before, and see this is counting up now. You see the counter here? Members and guests are added. They are now bulk added according to the emails. So now the magic unfolds. They're really adding up now, and it's worth actually saving that script in a notepad file as I do, because then I can just go ahead and save this and keep this, and then when I have something new to populate, I just need to replace the file path, and I need to replace the group ID if it's a different group. And that's basically it there. So it's just waiting for this to populate, and you see it's just counting up. And once the script is done in PowerShell, don't close PowerShell before that. It will just give you a new prompt here, like here, and then you can basically exit PowerShell, no problem. So I just let this run and finish. We already have 139 here, so we're halfway through, which is great. Let's see, this is nicely counting up, 153, 154. Once this is gets going, it's incredibly quick. We have 184, almost 190 people added. So once the script is running, probably takes about 5 to 10 minutes for about 300 users. 230. The script is done. Was it 258? That might be correct actually, that we had that many in there. And you can have a quick look through if there's anything uncouth going on, but basically, so once the script is finished, you can use a closed PowerShell. Please do not close it before it's done. and it's very easy to close. You just type in exit and then PowerShell closes, and you're done. 258 added. So they're all in there. The script is done, the students are in there. So to summarize, main steps are that you need to generate a list of student email addresses that you want to add, formatted in a specific manner as a CSV, take care of the header. Then you need to get into PowerShell, you need to install the module for Microsoft Teams, and you need to get the team IDs, well, connect of course before, then get the IDs of the groups, the team groups, and then in the end run the script as I've shown you, and that adds the students as you just saw. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye bye.